Russia-Ukraine news. Death is met with indifference from the Biden administration, and Wagner's future remains uncertain. Although the world was shocked to hear of Yevgeny Prigozhin's death, Washington officials merely shrugged. Officials refrained from commenting on the specifics of the downed flight, instead emphasizing that this was the expected result of Prigozhin's failed mutiny against Moscow in June and that it does not alter the United States' assessment of Russia or its involvement in the conflict in Ukraine. While on vacation in Lake Tahoe, Vice President Joe Biden was asked if Russian President Vladimir Putin was responsible for the downing of Prigozhin's private plane, which was carrying him and 9 others. Biden responded, "There's not much that happens in Russia that Putin's not behind, but I don't know enough to know the answer." Since his uprising in June, the head of the Wagner Group, a former close confidant of Putin's and an advocate of coups and repressive governments around the world, had been widely considered to be on his deathbed. On Wednesday, the Russian Aviation Authority confirmed that Prigozhin was on the doomed flight. Before confirmation of Prigozhin's death, National Security Council spokesperson Adrian Watson said, "No one should be surprised by the initial reports." To paraphrase, the disastrous war in Ukraine led to a private army marching on Moscow, and now, it would seem, to this. On Wednesday, Sen. Mark Warner, DVA, the committee's chair, said that no one should mourn Prigozhin's death, calling it instead another reminder of the brutality of the Putin regime, and why we must continue our support for Ukraine in its fight for freedom. There does not appear to have been any significant changes in the administration's way of thinking or doing things so far. While officials are eager to learn more about what happened in Ukraine, they anticipate Putin will continue with business as usual. Without Prigozhin, an outspoken critic of the Kremlin's handling of the invasion, Putin may be able to consolidate power and quell internal rivals. After Prigozhin leaves, experts say the administration can expect to deal with a new Wagner group. "It's the definitive end of Wagner as we knew it," Samuel Charup of the RAND Corporation said. In interviews, Charup and 4 other experts on Russia in the United States predicted that Moscow would allow the mercenaries to act with pseudo-independence in Africa. "You don't want to be well-known because it makes you a threat to the regime," Alina Polyakova, president and CEO of the Center for European Policy Analysis, told the BBC. Former National Security Council, NSC, Russia expert Eric Green recently stated, "It will be hard for Russia to project power in Africa without Prigozhin." Also, Prigozhin was an odious human being, but he had managerial skills and a kind of charisma, he said. It would be difficult to duplicate that. Meanwhile, experts agree that the Russian Defense Ministry will continue to integrate some Wagner forces into the regular military, potentially sending them to Ukraine as special forces or elsewhere. Max Bergman of the Center for Strategic and International Studies argues that it could backfire on Putin to get rid of Wagner's beloved leader. A decapitation of Wagner, an effective tool for the Kremlin globally and in Ukraine, the retention of incompetent loyalists in charge of the war, and the removal of effective generals will all lead to growing frustration in the ranks, he warned. This is especially true if additional battlefield losses occur. Putin's war on Ukraine may be further complicated by internal strife in Russia, which would benefit Kyiv as its counteroffensive falters and give hope to Ukraine's Western backers to pump more weapons into the fight. "There is certainly no effect on U.S. policy," said Green, "at least in the short term." What Moscow will do with the over 3,000 Wagner mercenaries currently stationed in Belarus is the biggest open question. They have been conducting training exercises for Belarusian special forces close to the Polish border, which has alarmed NATO and Western nations. Even if the mercenaries who fought alongside Prigozhin in the brief uprising return to Russia to serve in the regular armed forces, they will be viewed with suspicion. There is still a lot of support for Prigozhin in Russia. Images of Wagner's St. Petersburg headquarters with crosses lit in the windows went viral on the internet.